Well, a new lawsuit involving Google and U.S. authorities is raising concerns about privacy, free speech, and whether Canadians can truly protect their personal information online in an increasingly connected digital world. Why does it matter? Well, most Canadians rely daily on American-owned digital platforms for communication, storage, search, and social interaction. Cases involving political speech and personal data raise serious questions about privacy rights and digital sovereignty. So, should Canadians worry about foreign governments seeking access to personal online data? Do companies like Google now hold too much influence over privacy and political speech? And could cases like this create a chilling effect where people become afraid to speak freely online? Eddie, initial thoughts?
Well, I guess there's two things we're speaking about here, as you mentioned during the stream here, is foreign bodies looking for information about Canadians. That's one big one for I think just about everyone. But I think also we cannot forget our domestic intelligence seeking out personal information on its Canadian citizens. I think it's twofold here. Yeah, you know what, Gary, especially on the foreign side of it, on the foreign front, it certainly is scary. I mean, you know what, I really do understand a country's right to make sure that hostile bodies don't come across their borders for whatever reason. And I know from a security perspective that our border agents, our security groups, our security agencies like CSIS, and you got your agencies in the United States, they all have a big responsibility in securing the borders and securing the safety of Canadians in the country in general. Okay, the question becomes was where is that fine line drawn? Okay. I look at our show, Gary. I mean, I think both you and I offer very, very open-ended commentary, and sometimes we get very opinionated, especially when there are things going around the world that affect the, the population, human beings in general. But you know what? We get very, very emotional when it comes to the well-being of Canadians being compromised because of something that's going on elsewhere. So yeah, sometimes we do get emotional. We do say things in the context of being on an online platform and doing a podcast like ours. We do say things that what now? You and I would have to start being careful as to what we say, because maybe somebody in the United States is going to want to know who are these two guys on Night Talk Canada, and what are they talking about? Criticizing American policy and criticizing the president with colorful metaphors. What does that mean, Gary? You and I are now in a potential spotlight where we're going to be harassed as we're crossing a border. Um, how do you and I know at this particular moment, like this other gentleman that we're going to be speaking about, how do we know we haven't got the American governments scanning and looking at what we're saying about Trump and his cronies and the American government right now? We don't. So it is seriously worrisome, Gary. So all these organizations and tech companies that are supposed to be securing the privacy of our data, our whereabouts, our personal information, the world of the Googles and whatnot are going to be open in providing personal security information to foreign governments because of the fact this foreign government has an interest in what you and I might provide as an opinion to anybody around that wants to listen to us. I'm I'm really scared about this, Gary. It is unnerving when I read the article about what's going on with this individual who's pushing back with lawsuits. it is scary. I mean, how many of us are actually under the microscope right now, Gary? That's my question. Are you and I under the microscope? Are our spouses under the microscope? Are our kids, because of what you and I express openly, according to our rights as individuals and free speech, are we going to be under scrutiny? Don't know, Gary. It is frightening to me.
Well, I would suggest, Eddie, that anytime you roll up to the U.S. border now and you encounter a border agent, whether you're traveling by road or you're going by plane, you're under intense scrutiny at that point, and especially when they grab your phone and start going through it. So get used to it, because that's the way of the world at the moment, and has been for the last year, and will be at least for the next 3 years, through the rest of President Trump's term. And just for a little bit of context for some of our viewers, listeners who may not be familiar, what happened is the American Civil Liberties Union has filed a lawsuit on behalf of a John Doe Canadian. The Department of Homeland Security apparently took some issue with some of his posts that he's been making on X and other social media platforms, and especially during back in January during the ICE operations in Minnesota, and the fact that 2 people were shot in Minnesota during those operations. John Doe was very, very critical of Donald Trump and the administration and ICE and the way this was all being handled. There was one post in particular that he put out in relation to the ongoing operation at the time, and it garnered over 96,000 views. He also tags government officials and departments and heads of departments when he does post, to make sure that they realize that he is speaking out against what they are doing. And as a result, he signed up. Most of his posts are on X and a few other platforms, but he used a Google Gmail address when he signed up for these platforms. That's how Google gets involved into the whole thing, because Department of Homeland Security came knocking at Google's door with a demand and a subpoena for information, as much information as they could glean on this guy, to find out exactly where he is, and God knows what they were going to do beyond that, or what they thought that they might be able to do beyond that. So the plaintiff, John Doe, said that I've long admired the United States for its commitment to free speech. And that was in a statement released by the ACLU. Never in a million years did I think, after criticizing the U.S. government, I would be targeted with a summons seeking to find out who I am, where I live, where I go, and what I read online. You don't have to be from America to know that this is un-American.
Yeah.
Now, go back a year ago when we had Elbows Up, Eddie, and there was a big push on to buy Canadian, and I took it upon myself to try and move away from US-based social media and platforms as much as I could. Guess what? That's easier said than done. A lot easier said than done. Anyway, I've managed to move away from Google and iCloud for most of my personal files. I found a company here in Canada with servers here in Canada. That's the big thing, servers here in Canada. And I'm also looking at a couple of companies based in Switzerland, where they have the toughest privacy laws of any country in the world. So I'm moving in that direction. However, there's a lot, I have an iPhone, I have a MacBook, I'm connected to iCloud. And guess where those servers are? Even here in Canada, our legal system is tighter around the privacy issue on servers than what it is in the U.S. The U.S. it's pretty loose, and that's why it's so easy
Right.
for these agencies and departments to walk in and try and demand. And with Department of Homeland Security, they're known now for going in and trying to fake their way in. They'll push and push and
Mhm.
push, and then if somebody pushes back and realizes that they do have a certain level of rights, DHS will just either go away or they'll go back and try and get the proper paperwork and signed by a judge.
Right.
So there's that aspect of it. So that's where we are. You know, if you're on TikTok, if you're on X, if you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook like we are, you're on YouTube like we are, and we use YouTube and Facebook for our weekly streams, and then we post segments from the show and shorts and reels. There's all kinds of material existing about us now as it stands, and our views and our thoughts as to what's been happening south of the border. And
Yeah,
frankly, I don't
and
give a
with all
damn.
these government, yeah, exactly. And you know what I mean? And with all these government AI data centers and the relationship with the big tech companies, I mean, you and I are doing a show right now. The chances are pretty good there's some system or some algorithm that's actually monitoring everything you and I are saying and deciding on whether or not to red flag any of our comments that we make on the show. We just don't know. And I seem to recall a television series with Jim Caviezel some time ago, where just about everybody and everything and everyone is being monitored by some sort of government system at all times. So what does that mean for us, Gary? Does that mean that you and I, as concerned individuals about what's going on in this country and the world, should stop doing what we're doing because we fear possible consequences tomorrow while crossing a border into the United States, or crossing any border for that matter anywhere in the world? How can you live like that? You can't really live like that. So I guess you cross your fingers, try to be respectful, and we really are pretty respectful individuals on our show, with emotional opinions sometimes, but by the same token, it's our right to provide our opinion as unbiased as possible, and looking at both sides of the fence. And I, for one, Gary, what am I going to do? Just stop living the way I live? Not travel to a country because I'm afraid? I mean, right now I'm boycotting traveling to the States anyway. It's not a big deal, but at some point I certainly hope to be able to go back to the United States. If there is a red flag on either of us or myself, what am I going to be looking at this until the end of my life? What a lot of questions, and it comes down to the powers in the executive governing parties of various countries. Canada, United States is what we're talking about right now. How much influence and impact and authority do they have to extract the information they want? How much power do the Googles of the world have to say, no freaking way? Very, very hard to say right now, Gary. That fine line seems to be so muddled right now that I would venture a guess that these tech companies and these tech giants are providing the necessary information that the government requires, regardless of what we actually hear on mainstream media.
Well, there's no question, Eddie, that a lot of them are not they'll put up token resistance, but that's it. And then
Mhm.
they'll roll over, play dead, and hand over whatever it is that whatever department has the proper paperwork for. Because, as I said, the laws protecting privacy on servers in the United States, from anything I've read, anyhow, are very, very weak. We
Yeah.
have a stronger regime here in Canada, and then you have a country like Switzerland where it's really, really tight. And the European Union is also moving to get away from dependence on like the Microsofts of the world, for example, and the Googles of the world. They're developing some of their own software, at least for use within government circles, to get away from having that kind of an influence or ability of the U.S. government to have access to information that they may consider is none of their business. So they're moving in that direction. They're even developing a financial system, their own financial system, to move away like from the Interact world and Visa and MasterCard.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how seriously they're taking it over there, and rightly so, I think, for sure. We're getting some comments coming in. I'm just putting them up as we go along and leaving them up. We'd like to hear from you and what your thoughts on it are. Do Canadians still have real privacy online? And I think it was Kathy brought up a point about artificial intelligence and how we are using artificial intelligence, because every time you put something in, that's something that's going in and it's being used to train those various models, whatever models behind the scenes that are connected to your chat. You're putting that information in. And you can ask and ask your AI, and it will say, oh no, nothing, everything is private. Well, no, it's not. Read the fine print in the terms of service, which, by the way, are written in such a way, it doesn't matter if you're talking AI or if you're talking Microsoft, Google, Apple, any of them. Those terms of service are written in such a way to discourage the average person from sitting down and trying to read through them to see exactly what they're getting themselves into. And there's all kinds of loose and wide open language in those terms of service as well that gives these people the freedom, the ability, the permission to do with our information whatever they want. Now, I just watched something this morning. Google is launching more updates, and their Fitbit line, they're developing a new app, Google Health, which would be very similar to the Apple Health app. And one of the things that they're selling on this is the fact that any of the information that goes into your Google Health app will not be used for personalizing ads coming your way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. I was just going to say, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that. Yeah. No, I don't. No, I don't. Not in the least do I believe that. Not by any stretch of the imagination would I believe that. So,
Gary, Gary, they would want to know how many bathroom breaks you take in a day if they think they can make a buck off of you.
oh, absolutely. There's
Right.
no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind about that at all.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. So, did I get, I think I missed Monel the first time around. Anyway, and that's, I don't ever plan to go to the US again. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
I'll find somewhere to go in Canada or elsewhere, but, and there are some great people in the United States. I'm not taking that away from them, but it's, we've been kicked around by this administration and ridiculed and threatened and bullied and just about anything you can get, any word you can get your tongue around as to trying to take our knees out. And I'm sorry, that's it. Like, I want nothing to do with. And you know what made me feel good just earlier this week, Eddie? I read where spirit sales in the last year from the US to Canada down 65%.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why you've got some of the Republicans now crying and going on about and Trump and his Lutnick and the other guy, his name just escapes me, and I really don't care, going on about making that and calling it an irritant that has to be dealt with before we really get into talking about Kuzma. And, you know,
extra. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and he's gone, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, God bless Wab Kinew, Premier of Manitoba.
Oh, boy.
Because he just said, he just smiles. That smile, a very calming smile he gets on his face. And he just says, we're not putting it back on until you release all of the Epstein files. What was the other thing? Anyway, he had a list. And he said, until you do all of that, we're not putting American booze back on the shelves of our liquor stores. Good for you, Wab.
And you're exactly. And you're speaking about a drop in booze sales, 40 some odd percent.
65.
Very recently, 65%, sorry. That was another number I was going to bring up. So 65% for the booze. And everything we've seen thus far from the American government or Canadian government in terms of the reduced amount of border crossings of Canadians taking a trip or going into the United States, you always heard 23, 25% drop. Very recently, there was a huge university study, outside of the government bodies, a huge university study that actually estimate that the drop of Canadian travel into the United States is somewhere in the vicinity of 48% from before when Trump took office. Think about that, Gary. 48%, and this is coming out of university research. So you can rest be assured that these numbers have a closer grasp of the truth because it's university research. Somebody's doing a thesis, a master's degree, or PhD on something. Their damn numbers are usually pretty accurate. So if this is coming out of a university body in Canada, 48%. Think about that. It kind of explains why you have the Las Vegases of the world sending delegates to Canada, tourism hotspots in Canada, begging people to come to Las Vegas. And we're going to give you everything at par, even gambling at par. That's why you have border states like Maine consistently crying to both their government and our governments to try to encourage Canadians to travel to their states. It's the small guys that are suffering along the border towns that are dependent on Airbnb and local business to their establishments that are getting killed. And if they're getting killed, and you have the big resorts also complaining, that's a significant hit. And there's only one individual and one government over the last 18 months of hell or so that you can point your finger at.
That's right.
Right. So what now? So because of what I said just now, is there going to be a red flag somewhere, Gary? Is the question of this segment one. I mean, right now I criticize the American government and their policies and the impact it has on their livelihoods. We have a whole piece on our livelihoods coming up, but impacting American livelihoods because of the decisions made. Are we being flagged? Who knows?
Well, I'm sure we are. To be quite honest, not that I'm thinking that we've got a huge audience, but I can tell you for sure that between 25 and 28% of our audience in any given week comes from the US.
It does. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, so about a quarter of our audience on our live feeds, and then through the week when we have segments posted separately, coming from the US. So yeah, are we flagged? Yeah, I'm thinking that
Maybe
there's probably somewhere.
a tick in a box or two somewhere for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And again, as I say, I don't give a damn. I really don't. Because if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, Donald. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And there are a few more Canadians. If you go through YouTube, you'll find a lot of other Canadians on there with their channels and commenting that are not favorable, and even more so than it seems than what we are. They're more intense in the way they address the president. I try to give a little bit of respect still to the office, but it's pretty hard to do it when you're blinded by all of the fake gold that's stuck on the walls in the Oval Office. No wonder he's orange all the time. The light reflecting off that stuff. But, and there's another flag on my account. I don't care. I mean, I've been involved in security clearances over the years, like as a youngster going through, like because of my father's work with the Department of National Defense, the whole family would be included. Right on through to being cleared for covering premiers and God,
Right.
I still can't believe I did this, but covered the Royals on a couple of occasions when they were in New Brunswick. So you had to get security clearance that way as well. So you know what? I don't need security clearance any longer. And even if I did, it would only be here in Canada or maybe in Europe. And I think I'm okay.
Right.
And as far as
You know what, Gary, in our careers, both yourself as a broadcast journalist and myself when I was in the aeronautical industry, airline telecommunications industry, I too had to go through security clearance to get back access to all airport facilities for the accounts that I had throughout Canada, United States as well. So both you and I have, I'm sure, cleared our security check with flying colors. Otherwise, you would not be able to get close to any delegates anywhere, a person of importance, and B, I would never be able to get through the front gate of an airport. So, in terms of our credibility as citizens of the world, not citizens of Canada, citizens of the world, our security is impeccable without question. Now, here's what bugs me, and I tried to summarize it at the beginning when you gave me the helm for a second there, and I went off on a tangent. Is you and I are getting potential harassment, like this individual, this John Doe we talked about, because of what we're saying, because of what we're thinking, because of what we're feeling as Canadians. That's freaking absurd. And anyone who doesn't see this type of, squashing a bug under a shoe as just outright totalitarianism and authoritarian thinking and government is dreaming. This is exactly what it is. I mean, if you and I as Canadians potentially might have little tick boxes and little check marks and little red flags by the American government because tech companies decide to give them the information openly, if you and I are scrutinized, what's happening to the American public?
Exactly.
Seriously. So, yeah, again, Gary, it's shameful. I don't know what other word to use. It's just absolutely shameful what that administration in the United States today is trying to accomplish by gaining dirt on the common Joe. Listen, they got enough crap and dirt in their own administration. They can just look into the damn mirror if they want to find some people that are trying to screw over the American public and the American and the United States of America in general. Look at the damn mirror. Don't come after me and my friend Gary and John Doe and so on and so forth. You got bigger problems in your own country, for crying out loud,
Yeah. Right in your own White House.
Exactly. Look in the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, look in the mirror or look in one
Look
of
in
the
the gold
ornaments.
mirror.
Yeah. Certainly, it's, the United States has prided itself over the years as the beacon of democracy and freedom of speech. To any Americans watching us, if you haven't figured it out already, and I'm sure you have, because even cracks are showing in the MAGA support now, but the fact of the matter is, every day there's one more chip put into the freedoms that you have. And you're getting to a point where your freedom is in word only, not in practice. So, Eddie, our takeaway. This story is bigger than one lawsuit. Is it ever? It highlights growing concerns over who ultimately controls personal information in the digital age: citizens, governments, or tech companies.